say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Notification, the notification of open meetings act is posted on the door in the back of the room. Roll call, Melissa? Deb?
Here.
Stephanie? Mike here? Wyatt?
Yes.
Chance?
Yes.
Okay, number 6, approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Second.
Move second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Move on then to the consent agenda, sorry, the minutes.
You notice, in addition to the monthly expenditure and percent of budget spent, I included for the first time in this packet, we'll just continue to do so, property tax revenue per month for building fund and general fund, and trends going back 4 years. So just so you can kind of gauge what we can even, anticipate from month to month, because generally months year over year are somewhat similar. So obviously a primary source of revenue, over 90% of our revenue. So I'll just include that in your financials every month as well.
Okay. Any questions on the financials? Move on to the claims.
There's that one claim in there for that nutrition software for $5,675. You can withhold that and put that on an action item next month if you want. Now, they did talk about this and it was budgeted for, but being over $5,000, if you want to formally approve that one outside of the claims, that can be done. But we just included it because it again, it was budgeted for. She visited with the full board about that. And
We had approved the purchase, didn't we, at the meeting?
We made a motion for that.
for the software.
I thought we did.
Up to the purchase of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I have, and with this amount.
I don't know that it was this, but I don't think we knew the specific maybe.
Okay.
But
All right. Well,
Either way,
just,
we can-
you can sure have that
Sure.
option if you'd like to. I mean,
I think it's about that, but it's pretty close to it.
She estimated, she didn't know what she thought.
That's
It
fine.
was around 5,000.
Yep.
Any other questions on those? Okay, if not, then motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
a second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Number 8, celebration of excellence. Wyatt Thor here today.
What do you guys want me to say?
Yes, please.
Where at? Well, first of all, I just want to offer my thanks to the district and the board for
giving me this opportunity, to Dr. Earl for nominating me for this just great opportunity. It was a great time down there. And yeah, basically what it entailed was just asking questions to this whole board here, this whole panel. So we were just asked just a few questions about our personal experiences in the public school system. We were asked about specifics about our specific school and district, and we were asked a little bit about just ourselves in general. I mean, would anybody want me to list off the specific questions that they asked? 'Cause I can pull those up. That was basically what it entailed. But yeah, great opportunity. It's a good experience. So.
You did our school proud, you did proud of you, you did a nice job.
How much long in advance did you have the questions?
A couple months.
Couple months. Wasn't there a few at the end that were kind of surprised to you?
Yeah, there was a couple throughout that weren't on there.
That was only obvious.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to do it.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a little intimidating when you've
I
got
mean,
40 or
yeah.
50 people staring at you.
A little bit.
White was a representative on this panel that intends to serve in the United States military after graduation. That was one of the criteria. They wanted a student who intends to go into the armed forces, and so he was the lone student representative from across Nebraska that was invited to be on this panel that intends to serve his nation after graduation. So it was, yeah, if you could turn this around, it's a room about the size of our gym, you know, full of people, you know, school board members and administrators from across the state who primarily listen to the gentleman standing with the tie was the moderator and shared the questions with the whole group, and then everybody had an opportunity to respond. So again, we love to have our students represent Plainview Public Schools outside of Plainview Public Schools, and there's no bigger stage than that. Wyatt, so
And you did a great
well
job.
done.
It was
Yes.
an honor as well. So, thank
Would you like going first or last on the same question?
you. I like to win first. An original response. I can't really take out everybody else's.
Yeah, well, you did a good job. Thanks again for doing it.
Yeah.
For telling us about it here tonight.
Thank you, Wyatt.
Thank you. Good job, Mike.
So we'll move on to number 9, public comment. Do you have anybody who wants to talk tonight? If not, we'll move on into discussion items. Number 10, update on the facilities report.
Okay, so we've got Bob scheduled to come present to you live next month, the January meeting, to share with you the latest details on the facility audit that you hired his architectural firm to complete over Christmas break. They're coming to do a energy audit. We've had one of those done before several years ago, before we did some of our HVAC projects. But that will be included as well. So I did share with you last month, he had teacher and staff interviews, so gathering quite a bit of information. Next month, he'll visit with you about some of your issues, concerns, desires with facilities, and probably set up maybe some individual conversations with some of you that may be face-to-face, virtual, over the phone. Just he's still in the data gathering and information gathering mode.
Is he gonna be here in person, or will that be a?
Yes, he'll be here in person. Yeah, he'll be here in person next month. Okay, we've got.
Oh, you got it.
I can flip it on for now, though.
Oh, yeah,
There we go.
That's all right.
we'll be up
Thought you
here.
really had more to do.
Yeah, sorry, that'll be your, the board development video number 14. So, and also did, visit with, Mr. Tar on, the progress on the engineering of Lincoln Street, and that's ongoing. So, it just, I guess it's a process. But I've seen them out there a couple of different times on a couple of different days doing what is obvious surveying work, so. So that's happening. We don't have a for sure date, whether it's February, March, or April, when when we get a report, and that's kind of what's most anticipated is what did they find and what's it gonna take. So still, we don't have a firm idea whether it's gonna be conceivable, doable, but at least we'll have an answer on, well, what's it gonna take to have it done. So then city and school will have a decision to make. Hopefully, we're aligned in that decision, both yay or both nay, I guess. Okay, so that's all I have for facilities.
1920 building.
Yeah, that's part of the facility audit. Or Bill Beckenhauer,
Yeah, update on
said
that.
that the best he can do right now is just say, take that 2016 estimate times 3.
Okay.
My latest conversation with him, which hasn't changed from last month, did reach out to him last month. He said, well, I couldn't find his notes. I don't know how motivated he is, to be honest with you. 'Cause I've asked him a couple of different times for, since he was here 2 months ago, we would look at it. So that estimate times 3 from 2016 to fix both corners.
Okay.
So, yes, I guess we probably, best to have building and grounds meet to decide on a recommendation on whether to go ahead and invest in that.
We're a long ways out from having anything else done, from being able to move out of that building, I guess.
I think it's fair to say.
I
yes.
think we need to have a serious discussion on that.
It does kind of sound like he's not too interested in giving you a bid. If he's
Correct.
just gonna say it's 3 times what it was last time.
And maybe.
I guess my question is, how serious are we about repairing it then? We've had 2 fairly serious, well, not fairly serious, but serious letters anyway concerning the stability of that structure. We went from 13,000 8 years ago anyway to fix it, now it's 40, well, that's, it's only 40 grand, if you ask me. We're a long ways from moving out of there anyway, unless somebody else has some other information for us. But yeah, building grounds probably should meet and talk about that.
I guess maybe reach out to him maybe one more time, see if he'd be able to get us some kind of a hard
Okay.
figure, and then get the committee together.
Or even about a time frame when we could do it, might be a year out, we could get it right here.
Yeah, there might, anybody
He's not
else?
that interested.
Who maybe could contact you, I guess we could talk about that committee.
Yeah, there would be others, none locally that I would know of, that would probably be in the same price range, but, I've not had anybody else look at it other than, Beckenhauer's.
We'll move on to number 11, the State School Board Conference. Well, 4 of us currents, and Justin was able to go along. It was a good couple days. I wasn't there the first day, but I heard that was pretty good. It was on AI, correct?
Yes.
You guys
Yeah,
went to?
and that was, well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the district for sending us, and thank you, Dr. Alt, for shuttling us around and making all of the arrangements. So the first day was about a 4-hour session on AI. We've had this discussion with our board here of how do we approach it, how do we address it. So just learning more about it, being more informed about decisions we'll have to make at some point. And I spent the rest of my time there, pretty much going to the same or similar sessions on how to make our kids more employable, how to make our community more sustainable. I definitely got a lot of great ideas that I'd like to think about a little bit more and see how I can bring them back to our community. Last fall, Mr. Schmidt and I had a discussion about hosting a job fair at the school and what that would look like. We've just been busy with everything else going on. I'm gonna touch base about it in a while, but some schools in our state are really, really taking it to the next level of addressing the issue of kids being ready to be employed as journeymen, as mechanics, all sorts of things. It was very, very interesting to see. Winnebago was there also, or not Winnebago, excuse me, Macy Schools was there, and that they had a really hard time with their attendance and just poverty on the reservation. And they have a new superintendent within the last 5 years that's really, really, really changed things around, and they're turning things around in their school. Just so, I learned a lot, and I hope that I can bring it back here to our town.
Yeah, a lot of good speakers in the general session.
Mhm.
They have so many workshops, you can kind of tailor what you want to go to, what you're interested in. I made it to the board president meeting, I made some of the digitizing meetings, sat through that. Yeah, it was just a good experience, so anybody that, I encourage everybody to go if you can make it.
School lawyers always have
School
good
law.
seminars too, that tell you what to do and what not to do and what's going on. Yeah, so, good recommendations.
Well, and Justin, can you tell us about what you learned down there?
Well, being my first time down there, everything was new. But yeah, I mean, as far as workshops go, there was workshops from legal to financial to, like you mentioned, welfare in the school, social media. You know, there was just a whole range of stuff, so you can really tailor whatever your interests were. So, yeah, I took a lot of notes, bring some things back. Definitely, like I said, if the person goes back the following year, you'll see all new stuff. I mean, so it was really interesting.
And you attended a lot of farm to table.
Yeah, farm to
sessions?
table, I mean, looking at ways of bringing tax dollars back, cycling tax dollars back into communities. So a lot of interest there. Yeah, and then just promoting school, having a mission and using that as your kind of your focus when you're trying to make decisions, so it was good.
Well, and the great part about sending so many of us down there is that I don't know how many sessions are offered every hour. I think there's about a dozen an hour, 10 to 12 offered an hour, and when there's so many of us that go, we can hit all of those and then discuss them afterwards.
Yeah, and even still, there's some you'd like to go to, but you can't, they're running at the same time.
Yeah.
You said that's what we gotta go next year, right?
That's all right. And most of them will be different next year.
I did include on my evaluation back to NASB, I wish they would request that all breakout sessions submit their PowerPoint or notes to the NASB. And then, because, there's 2 sessions I'd really like to go to, well, at least I can go and capture the information from a breakout session that I chose not to attend. That was my number 2, for example. Because they just say, well, if you want to submit them, you can. Well, they only had about a dozen, and you know how many breakout sessions they are. They only had about a dozen, but practically every breakout session has a PowerPoint or notes that they should submit to NASB to make available to everybody whether they attend the breakout session or not. So that remains to be seen on whether they'll support that idea.
It would be really, really nice.
Yeah.
Anything else, anybody sure about it? It'll be the week before Thanksgiving next year, right? All right, number 12, Keaton's here, I think you went to the new board member workshop on Monday, if you want to give us takeaways.
Yeah, sure. It was good, it was worthwhile, it was just in Norfolk. It was 8:30 to 3, kind of a packed day, but it was probably more broad spectrum, high level type stuff. Morning was just basic leadership stuff and the role of the school board in leadership. And then they kind of went into more of your role of a board, how to handle certain situations, kind of the chain of command, if you will. And then how a board meeting works, the motions and everything else, which was great for me. It sounds like that's gonna become, they want it to be almost like a school board member academy. Like it's gonna be a curriculum now where they're gonna have every 4 to 6 weeks, a touch point with you, not necessarily in person, but a Zoom or a WebEx going over maybe some more specific things like you guys saw in the workshops. And there's gonna be, I think, 12 parts to it. And they're gonna try and cycle that through every couple of years maybe to catch new board members each time. Don't know if we'll be able to make all the in-person ones, but I'll sure try and do some of those Zoom ones or even watch the recordings of them. So it was definitely worth going. Got about a page and a half of notes.
Yeah, good, well, thanks for taking the time to go, 'cause it was not just a couple hour meeting at night, it
It was a
all
full day.
so
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Still a little easier than what you had to do on chance, because it wasn't like COVID when you did it or something.
Yeah, Deb and I had to watch it all, and we had to. I hate things. Unless you can just like set the computer over there and I'll watch it.
All right, thanks, Kate. We'll move on to 13 then, policy review, starting with 50807.
So these are some more health responsive policies again, or actually, well, the first one's custodial and parental rights, and before we get into asthma, allergic reaction protocol. Custodial and parental rights, you can see the legal reference has a Nebraska statute tied to it. So when they're grounded in statute, we just wait for statute to change, and therefore the language to change, then it'll be pushed back out to us. There's, as you're fully aware, in the past couple of years, there's kind of been a nationwide conversation about parental rights in public education and within the schools. For the most part, that doesn't really affect us. We've got a different relationship, I think, with our parents than maybe some schools, particularly urban, maybe have around the country. I don't know. So we don't seem to have, and in my time, I don't recall any serious issue with parental rights in school and anything that they're interested in or want access to. Just really is, for the most part, really kind of a non-issue. So, and also with regard to circumstances with families where, a child, parents are maybe in some type of custody battle, and we work with both sides. We include both sides with regard to communication, unless we're told otherwise. Whether it's parent-teacher conference, whether it's newsletter, whether it's a Sunday night phone call, whatever. We include everybody unless we've got some legal reason to not. So 50807 language is good. You should have just a new review date on the bottom. 50812, there is a new 50812R1 has some new language. So you would have received a new copy of that. Regulation 1. The language is the same on 50812. You can see that comes from Nebraska Rule 59006. So that is the Department of Ed rule. But you also have a new regulation 1. I did consult with Nurse Beth, anything with regard to health within the schools, so I run our policies by her. She's the one that brought to my attention that we have a little bit language change in our regulation, and so that's why you have a fresh copy of that. And then the school wellness policy, which has gone from 6 pages to 14 pages in the past several years. Always a good one to kind of review. I mean, I catch a couple things in there that we may or may not be doing, should be or shouldn't be, and we are. One of them is what we have in our vending machine for drinks, when it's accessible and what we have in there. Technically, according to policy, Mountain Dew shouldn't be in there, for example, and it is, but we are restricting access to that throughout the day, some more. But school wellness has taken on quite a significant change in the past 6 to 8 to 10 years. We just did have our triennial wellness assessment that we went through. That's an every 3-year process. And a lot of that has to do with school nutrition, so LaVey Wells worked with me quite a bit on that. So you should have only received a front page of the school wellness policy. I wasn't gonna run all 14 pages. Just the front page, which has a new reviewed date, which is today.
So we didn't get any new policy stuff, that's not next month, right?
Yeah, there are no new policies for tonight, just these 3 reviews.
But I mean, the reviews pages won't come out for next month, to put the book. There weren't no folders.
They're not mine and yours, but they were in hers,
Oh.
so.
Okay, yeah, that answers that. Yeah, I knew I ran them off, but I.
So you guys will be short,
Might
start
not
out.
put those in.
Oh, no, we're not, second reading next month, right?
You know,
Not from the
review,
myself,
review
and
versus
then
review.
Yeah, that wellness policy is kind of lengthy.
Cumbersome.
Okay, well, we've got board development tonight. Instead of doing the binder, Dr. Earl found a I think, pretty relevant video, KSB school law, so.
Yeah.
10-minute deal.
Yeah, NASB, you know, your Nebraska Association of School Boards generally provides information about best practice. So the professional development programs provided through NASB are primarily about best practice. KSB and the Perry Law Firm, I just chose KSB's over Perry. They their primary responsibility is to make sure what you're doing is grounded in statute. It's the legal aspect of board's responsibilities, not as much best practice, but the legal aspect. So this is a brief video from Karen Hazy that I thought is pretty good and is pretty relevant really on a routine or maybe an annual basis.
This is one of our continuing series of videos giving school board members the information that legally we think makes your life easier and makes you better able to do your job effectively. And today's topic is one that is near and dear to my heart, and that is board and superintendent roles. Now, I know sometimes your superintendents want to talk to you about what it is that their job is, but what I want to focus on today is what your job is. And that leads me right into this same old boring disclaimer slide, which says that KSB school law represents only public school districts and related entities, not individual employees. Here's what that means in the context of the next 10, 11 minutes of presentation. I am your school district's lawyer. I represent the board, the same as any other law firm that works with school districts. That means when I talk to you about your role as a board member, it is certainly not an attempt to minimize the really, really important work that you do. Instead, what I want to share with you is what the research shows and what the law provides to make school boards most effective and superintendents most effective at having everybody understand their various roles. So to finish off this disclaimer, technically these slides do not constitute legal advice, they're continuing education, and we aren't creating an attorney-client relationship by you watching this video. Okay, I want to start by talking about school board members as education leaders. And if you are one of the districts that has worked with us on the Superintendent Evaluation app, you've heard some of this stuff that I'm going to review probably in more detail than you want. But what I really want you all to understand is that a school board member, you are more than just like the local person deciding whether or not to hire or fire a coach. Your job is much more important than that. Your job as an education leader and your performance as a board actually makes a difference in student achievement. These are some of the studies of school board effectiveness that, again, we talk about when we train boards on how to use our superintendent app, our evaluation app. And what these studies have all shown is that there are common themes, and that the things that school boards do well can actually have an impact on student test scores. We're not always entirely sure about how there's a cause and effect between a dysfunctional board and a third grader not doing well on standardized tests, but the evidence is overwhelming that effective school boards have students in their schools that are high achieving students. And what these studies have found is that there's a set of specific behaviors by boards that are highly correlated with high student test scores. High collaboration among board members and with their superintendent. High communication, again, both with the superintendent and with each other. The really important one that we're going to focus on in this video is a shared knowledge and understanding of your roles. And again, that means everybody on the board having a common understanding of their role, and the board as a whole having a common understanding with the superintendent about what everybody's respective roles are. The remaining three factors are defined in specific vision, accountability for superintendent and staff, as well as for board members, and by short meetings that are supplemented by continuing ed, like these videos. So yay on you guys that you're doing already one of the things that is shown to increase student achievement. So for the next few minutes, I want to talk about what is the appropriate role for a school board versus what is the role that your superintendent or administrators play. And in Nebraska, we have specific statutory duties that are given to the board. One is to provide a school building where students will come and learn in a physical location. Another statutory responsibility is that you keep that school building in good condition. So your Buildings and Grounds Committee keeping track of the fact that the football field is safe, or that the kindergarten classroom isn't full of hazards for little kids. That is actually part and parcel of your statutory core duties as a school board. The Nebraska statutes also require you to keep accurate accounts. This really applies mostly to your budgeting process. But I also think there is absolutely, it's not out of your lane at all for school board members to carefully review your list of claims and to make sure that your treasurer's reports and all your business records are kept in good order, because that's part of your core statutory duty. From a more practical or operational standpoint, your most important job is to establish school district policy. And sometimes I think that when you see policy on a board agenda, it's like, oh, so boring, make it stop. But truly, I believe this to my core, and I've done this a really long time, having good policies that you guys understand and you support, and that articulate the shared vision that you have as a school community for what you want to accomplish. That is your most important role, and no one else can do that except a locally elected Board of Education. I believe that to my core. So when I say you should focus on policies, it's not like busy work that we're putting you off to the side. This is the work, the most important thing that a board does. I believe that to my core. You, by statute, employ all certificated staff, so you have to approve every employment contract. And as we've discussed in some of the other presentations, you also are ultimately responsible for the discharge of that staff, but you have to be sort of cabined off from the decision-making as it happens in real time, because you're like the jury if a teacher or an employee is being dismissed. And then other than that, your main operational job is to supervise the superintendent. I tell boards all the time, if you want to control what happens at the school, the only employee that you really boss around is the superintendent. But I have no problem with you holding the superintendent accountable for implementing the vision and the policies that you and your board have decided are important to your school community. This brings me to kind of the big distinction. And I think boards are absolutely, positively, 100% charged with oversight, which is defined technically as watchful and responsible care, regulatory supervision. Contrast that with micromanagement, which means an individual who wants to control every little part of an operation, however small. And the real trick in being understanding your board's role is knowing the difference between oversight and micromanagement, right? So the administration's duties, really under the statute, are the evaluation and discipline of certificated staff. I know it sometimes seems to your community like you should be telling that science teacher to not be bad, but that's the administration's job. The administration's job is to recommend non-renewal, termination, or cancellation. That is something they can only do and then bring it to you. You guys should not be initiating that. And then the administration is responsible for making sure that all of the budget documents that you guys have considered and approved get appropriately filed and put up with the Department of Ed and the Auditor of Public Accounts. Operationally, it's the administration's job to carry out board policy. You pass a policy, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you expecting it to be followed. They direct, supervise, and evaluate all staff. The only staff member you guys have to evaluate is the superintendent, which again is why we put some resources behind some assistance on the superintendent evaluation app. But whatever format you guys use, or whatever, if it's a form that you've had for 50 years, you use the school board associations or something else, one of your primary duties is to evaluate the superintendent so that he or she can evaluate and direct all the staff. And then finally, the administration oversees the actual operation of the school, and you guys, again, oversee the superintendent. One of the kind of tricky things in the way we have local school boards structured is that the superintendent is also responsible for leading and providing professional development for the board, which is kind of weird because you're his or her boss, but they're also trying to provide leadership and development for you. Again, that's why I think things like this video series through ESU 9 are so cool, because it gives you a chance to have that professional development, and your superintendent can be of assistance in getting you these resources without bossing the boss, so to speak. So in summary, the board's role is to decide what the goals are, where we're headed, right? What are our community values? What is our vision? What is our priority? And you make those real by having your school board policies reflect your community's values. And again, in 2023, given all the stuff we're doing, talking about transgender students, library materials, curriculum, there is absolutely nothing wrong with boards trying to create policies that are lawful, but that also support your community's values. And those policies are going to look different in the far western parts of the state than they are in the Omaha metro. That's your job as a board, to put together a vision that reflects your community's values. And then the administration's role is how. Their job is to figure out the strategies, tactics, and techniques that they're going to use to get you to your goals and to share with you their game plan. And you can say this sounds good or it doesn't, but it's their job to figure out the how. Common examples where we all the time see this get tricky, of course, goes back to hiring and firing a staff. 80% of your budget is probably tied up in your personnel, and a huge amount of the research on classroom instruction and on student learning says that good teachers result in students having better academic achievement. So you want to have good, solid hiring and firing practices, but you don't want to overstep into micromanagement, because that's where we can start getting that area where the roles get all kerfluffled. I know a lot of you probably still have the board approve a list of coaching assignments. I think that is an area that falls better into the administration's role. You guys don't get paid enough to listen to somebody carp about how you should be running a man-to-man defense instead of zone on the girls' basketball team. And the information about how that coach actually interacts with kids on a day-to-day basis, really your administration is closer to that situation, and that is more of an administrative decision. And the final area where I see things get tricky, and summertime is the perfect time to spend some time talking about this as a board, is drug and alcohol offenses by student athletes. If you expect that a student on his or her first time getting cited for MIP should lose an entire season of sports, you have that authority as a board. But you don't want to have a policy that's super harsh like that, and then when a particular kid gets popped, you are like, man, that doesn't seem fair, we should find a way to get around it, right? So you should set what the goal is, what the standard is for your district, but then you can't get your fingers involved when there's a specific kid that has a drug or alcohol offense that's going to either affect the kid or affect the success of the team overall. So these are, there's nothing illegitimate about these. I understand why these are important in your communities, but they're great examples for you to have a conversation at the conclusion of this video about how these are places, touch points, where board members can sometimes struggle with the difference between oversight and micromanagement. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this stimulates some really important conversations in your district. This is one of the least law-heavy one of the videos, but I also think it's most important in terms of us making sure that Nebraska school districts continue to be second to none in the nation. If you've got questions, here's the firm email, the firm phone number. Thanks again for taking the time to participate in these videos. We've really enjoyed putting them together for you.
Better to, hear something like that than just read something over the books. Brought up some pretty, points that are good to know, good to remember. I don't know if you guys would be interested in doing more of that in the future, or you wanna keep working with the binder?
I would like that.
The binder's a lot of data right now, isn't it?
There's some of the parts of it,
I think it's another perspective, that's a law firm versus NASB,
Well,
all that
and
stuff.
then the people of the district also have the opportunity to hear what we're reading in these programs.
I think it'd be all right if I don't know if it works in a series or.
Yeah, it's offered through ESU 9 right now, but I will check into having, access to that, even though we're outside of ESU 9. I don't know that it matters, and so I'll check with them. I'll check with Corey Dahl at our ESU and Karen at KSB if necessary. 'Cause as she mentioned, you heard there's a series of them.
All right, well, we'll move on then to 15, the superintendent evaluation. I delivered the evaluation to Dr. Arnold a couple weeks ago. We had a conversation about that. It's in our policy that he has the choice whether we want to talk about reaction to the evaluation in open or closed session, and Dr. Arnold chose to go closed session. I think we'd like to discuss that tonight, so we'll need a.
Which can wait till, it can wait till action item 17 if you're okay with that.
Yeah, we can wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need to make a motion to wait?
No, once we get to 17, we can go into closed session when we come out, then you'll take action on 17 and 18.
Okay.
Okay, we'll come back to that here in a second, then we'll move on to an action item then, which is number 16, discuss and take possible action on the purchase of clown cash for staff. We've been doing $20 last number of years.
Yeah, we raised it from 10 to 20, in the last 5 years.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 now.
It was 10 forever.
There's no changes to that.
Do the new coffee places take clown cash, does anybody know?
Good question.
How do they, once they accept the clown cash as a business, they go to the chamber, is that it?
They go to the city.
Is that it? And they get redeemed in full? It's not a discount, is it?
Yeah, they get redeemed in full. I'm not 100% sure. The next
Yeah,
chamber meeting, I'll ask however, or I'll ask my members. I mean, I better not say without having 100% sure.
Well,
Can we make it 25 this year? It's been 20 for a few years. Can't only eat one meal for $20 a month.
you can, you buy a pizza, can you? 20.
Be an additional $325 to go up 5.
I'll make a motion to purchase clown cash for each staff member in the amount of $25 each for a total of, what was that math, 13,
Well, it's gonna be 16 and 4.
1625.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to increase the clown cash for this year to $25. Any discussion? I'll vote, myself, yes. Mike? Yeah. Wyatt?
Yes.
Chance?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
6-0.
I'd say, Tim, could we do reports? And then, once we come out of closed session, would be able to adjourn after this final action ends?
Yeah.
Is that okay to go
Yeah,
out of order?
We can do that. That's all right. So, we'll go down to 19 then, start with activity director's report.
Our one act team was a district runner-up. I don't have the list of everybody who received acting awards and stuff. So on there, I did put our postseason recognition that we have out so far from our fall sports. So everything is wrapped up from the fall. Winter season had their first official competition started last week, so that is underway. We had a pretty wild weekend with Friday dance, bright basketball, wrestling on Saturday. Chamber was in the building as well, so we had a lot of things going on, but it was a fun weekend and got it started off with a lot of activity. I also just wanted to let you know, Tammy and I, every Monday, I pay out activity workers Monday morning for the past week, along with all of our entry fees and everything for the week that's coming. So, I mean, if you guys ever wanna see that stuff, we just pay it out weekly instead of waiting till the end of a season to pay everything out in a lump sum at the end. So there's a lot more checks that start going out that way, but I started doing it that way this year just because it's a lot easier to keep track of everything. And on the athletic side, it's a lot easier to keep our budget when I'm able to see it on a weekly basis instead of at the end of the season. So just giving you an update on that. And then, like I said, there's postseason awards that are going on in 2 more weeks and we're in the Christmas break, so.
Your coaching, that just goes into the regular salary schedule, doesn't it?
Yeah, all the coaching assignments and all that
Even if
stuff
they
is
come in,
done through Kelly.
Even
so.
if they just coach and not staff,
Correct.
they're still just
Yep.
bi-weekly.
And then we changed that when COVID hit, so they get paid during a season, so it's a 3-month span that they're paid, so.
Is that, report like made public at all? I just had a concerned citizen wondering why we had so many coaches for this one and not as many for that. I didn't know what to tell them. I really don't see an issue with it, you know, but I can see their point, like if they're sitting at a basketball game and they see 4 coaches sitting on the boys' basketball and 2 for the girls. But I don't know like which ones are getting paid, which ones are just volunteering, because I do know we have coaches that volunteer. So I just wonder if there's a way that, you know, make that public or something. I don't know if that's against rules or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't put it out public right now. I mean, if anybody asks, I tell them, but.
Yeah, if somebody wants to know teacher salaries, for example, but an extra duty would be part of
Yeah.
that.
And I don't even think they really care about the number. I think they more wanna know how many of them are volunteering and how many of them aren't. You know what I mean? Like just.
Yeah. We employ 3 boys coaches, 2 girls coaches. Our numbers for girls, we have 9
Are
girls
lower.
out, so.
Yep.
And then through attrition, we just didn't fill a 3rd spot for the girls, and the timing was right, because we had 9 girls anyway. So we retained all 3 coaches for boys, and then we did accept a volunteer on that staff, so.
I think that specific concern was, if it's the same one, was on how many football coaches.
Yeah, and I was wondering how many wrestling we had too, because I understand as a football player, each position, there's like completely totally, like you gotta have a position coach for certain positions that's maybe not gonna know how to coach this other position. You know, and I'm not having a problem with it, and I don't want that to sound like I'm having a problem, but I also was just thinking, like how many wrestling coaches do we have? You know, boys and girls? And then we have some guys that volunteer,
Yeah.
right?
We got 2.5 varsity boys coaches, we have 1.0 varsity girls coach. We have 4 football coaches, 1 volunteer. So that list, and it's interesting, she mentioned, a little coincidental, she mentioned years ago, when I came, the board did approve coaching assignments. And we have moved away from that, and I think reasonably so. But I thought maybe we still provided that list at the start of the year. If we don't, we certainly should include that in information to you, who is on the payroll.
That might be helpful.
Yeah, and so, and it's certainly not too late to get that to you, we'll push that out to you.
And some of that can change within the season if you have a
It
volunteer
can,
come in. Or
yeah, from August,
a quitter come and
yeah.
go or whatever.
But you certainly should know if we do accept a volunteer, somebody that wants to get some experience, work with kids. Of course, we don't approve just, anybody to come and work with our kids, but, if we were to give somebody an opportunity to learn and grow on a volunteer basis, and we approve that, that should be something that you're made aware of.
Yeah, just so we know, so we can answer this question.
Yeah.
You hear
It's
from
like,
people.
it'd be like, well, there's 3 people that volunteer. And you can't really help it if 3 people want to volunteer for boys basketball and nobody wants to volunteer for girls, or, you know what I mean?
I think it's probably fair to say if somebody came up now and said, we want to volunteer for boys, I mean, now we're starting to move somebody further down on the bench to fit some volunteer, and, that may be a circumstance where we'd say, it just doesn't work at this time for that.
And Mr. Schmidt, I don't know if you had heard about this or not, but there was someone that was wondering why there is scheduling for one acts and then speech in the school schedule. And I guess I would argue with that is just as important as having any other extracurricular like music and band. You're learning a lot of valuable life lessons in that room. So I don't know if that's something that's been brought to your attention, but.
You're talking about during the school day where we
During the
offer it
school
as a
day.
course.
Yeah, that there's that one acts time and the speech time also, but those are very, very important skills to have. Music is a very important skill to have and offer at the school, so I don't know if that is something that you had heard about, but that's how I feel about that. They need to remain the way they are.
I know the one concern is sharing kids too. If we were gonna have one act and speech practice, it would be at 7 o'clock at night every night or at 6 a.m. So it gives her full access to kids for an entire class period. They do get credit for it because we teach it as an actual theater class and as a speech class. So when they are outside of the competing time, she's doing other curriculum work with them, teaching them those skills, how to socialize outside of school, interview skills, things of that sort, where they're doing more than just competition stuff within those classes, so.
Right. All extracurricular activities are the second half of education. All of them. It's not just sports, music, the arts, they all are. They're all very important. So thank you for making those available.
And congratulate her on that one act, that was hilarious.
It was a fun one.
Reese was so, really enjoyed it, so make sure she knows it was fantastic. Should've got first, in my opinion. Nobody asked me to.
That's a lot of fun.
It was fun to see
Kids.
my kindergartners, and Carter Lincoln from it, oh my gosh. I always knew that Jackson King was fun, but they just did a great job.
Everything else?
That's it.
Okay. What's next?
Principals report.
Or principal's report.
December is a quiet month for us. We are finishing up, we have a select group of kids that we are map testing this week and last week between Kyle and I. So our 4th through 8th graders who are in tier 2 or 3 for math or reading. We've been providing intense interventions with them for the last couple months. So we decided that we wanted to see what kind of growth they have made with that, with our interventions. So that's why it's a very small group of kids that we're map testing. In the elementary, all of our kids are Ames Web tested this week. So that is a assessment that we use with them to test their reading abilities throughout the school year. Nebraska Reads requires us to do that 3 times a year too. So our kindergarten through 3rd grade friends have to do it. And then we've already kind of set some things up with our 4th and 6th graders that we wanted to make sure that we evaluated all of them with that particular assessment. So not as much as we've done in the past this time of the year, but we are going to do a little bit.
And that was a discussion we had with the teachers. And some of the things they've been trying in class, they wanna see if it's effective or not, so they wanna have some data to support what they're doing, so we said we would test them.
sense. You got anything else?
Nothing that
So
is
we've
out of
got
the
some-
ordinary.
Yeah, so we've got some test AQuest results in here.
I'll address some of those statistics in my report, Mr. Rass.
I do too.
Move on into.
Well, you know what? Listen to it. I'm gonna give it to it.
President's report. I don't have anything specific, but I did wanna, I mentioned a couple of months ago, just wanna thank Mike and Deb, you know, for their time that they've put in here on the board. Deb for 4 years and Mike the last 12 years. We're gonna miss the experience that you brought, you know, the advice, I don't miss the advice that you've given me too. And hopefully we'll be able to pick up the slack going forward.
We got a couple of good guys coming on, so.
I just appreciate all you guys have done over the past few years. Since you've been here 12 years, we're gonna present you with a lifetime activities pass.
No way.
It's worth a lot more, I'll guarantee you that.
Rather than a placard.
All those
and apple.
grandkids coming through now.
That way.
We talk about that all the time, how long it's been since we've had to pay to get in the plug. So, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Best of luck to you guys. You'll have one Monday a month, you won't know what to do with.
I'll probably still be
Good, with the chair right there.
No, I'm doing all the comments.
I'm looking forward to having these two guys on the back join us next month. That's all I got.
Thank you guys very much.
You're welcome.
It's been a good 12 years.
So,
It's kind of fun to look back and see what's all changed in 12 years, you know. Tremendous, Dr. O's a big part of that, the changes that we made in the last 12 years, the facilities and these two principals also to our curriculum and the teachers that they brought in, and, you know, I just feel like I'm in a great place, good shape, so. Financially, we haven't got back to where we were when we started, but we're pretty darn close, and we've done a lot with our money, so. Feel good about it, so, thank you guys.
thanks again. Okay, superintendent's report?
Speaking of money, we had just under 100,000 show up in our Title I grant this last week. So we've got about that amount every year as part of our federal title grant. So just always nice when it hits the bank account. So just to confirm that we received that this week. State conference, you can see the sessions that I attended focused quite a bit on the funding of facility projects and the variety of ways that you can go about doing that. You know, I suppose there's a threshold number where boards know, well, this will have to be a bond issue project versus you know, the projects that we've had over the past decade, not been funded with a bond issue, but through various other means, whether it's a lease purchase or building fund, over the course of time, borrowing some money and paying it back, whatever. But and then there's a variety of others. So I've got a lot of details that I'll know a little bit about moving forward as we continue to maybe have some conversation about the vision for the future of facilities. Stay surveys I thought was kind of interesting. In fact, and we're implementing those here, stay surveys and stay interviews. So rather than exit interviews with teachers that leave, why do we wait until they leave and then have an autopsy about why they left? What good does it really do you? So we're going to visit with our teachers about what makes you want to come to school and work here every day. What would make you stay? Have you ever thought about leaving? Why did you think of leaving? So retention, recruitment and retention in that order has been talked about for several years now as we've begun to see the exacerbation of the teacher shortage. Recruit and retain. Well, really it should be retain so you don't have to recruit. So focus on keeping the people that you have And you do that, one of the ways that you can do that is by conducting a stay survey. What will make you stay? What makes you stay? What can we continue to do to help you to know that the grass is greener on this side of the fence and maybe not somewhere else? So I'll conduct this stay survey, and then Kyle and Jen will have individual stay interviews in the spring before we issue contracts. Just to visit with and listen to teachers about why they enjoy, what specific reasons do they enjoy about Plainview Public Schools, and what makes them stay. And then we want to continue to foster those things so that we retain those folks. And so if we have to hire, if we lose teachers, we're losing 0, 1, or 2 and not 6, 7, or 8. Now again, life happens, right? And over the course of the time that I've been here, there've been a couple of years where we've lost 6, 7, or 8 or more. And those things can happen, but it's good to know, why they do. But so that was one thing I brought back that we're doing, and we'll share that information. We'll share that out with you as well. The information that we get back from our certified staff on why they stay. There is a district snapshot, and Tim alluded to that a little bit, that has some data just dropped this last week. So it's data relevant to last school year, as you can see, 23, 24. So we digest this a little bit, and they've got some good information on here. It always shows you the state and peers. The peers is the state assigned array. The state assigned array. So they look at Plainview Public Schools and they're like, who would their peers be? Common size, common demographics. Okay, so those are our peers and their numbers. That gives you just a little bit of data to compare, but we also want to compare us with ourselves previously. So I didn't put the 22-23 district snapshot in here. It's somewhere deep in your binder from a year ago, but I did analyze it, and there's some good measurable things that we like to see. Student membership is up significantly over last year and the previous several years. Free and reduced numbers up, special ed number is up over last year, attendance rate is up, graduation rate is up, college going rate is up, ACT scores all up, NSCAS science was up. Now, ELA was down, so our English language arts on NSCAS is down. So we look at that, and it's not a cause for alarm necessarily unless we see trending down year over year over year over year. Because you do have to look at, well, we're down for what reason? You do look at your students that take that test. Everybody's required to take the NSCAS. Everybody, special needs students are required to take the NSCAS. If you have a high special needs population, there's going to be a correlation between your NSCAS percent proficient and maybe your peers, depending upon their special needs population. Now, you can have 1% of your student body take the alternative assessment on NSCAS. Nobody is exempt, let me make that clear. No student is exempt from taking the NSCAS test. Now think of your students with the highest cognitive disabilities, those that are nonverbal and beyond. They are still required to take at least an alternative assessment. Now, you have to try 3 times before you try to administer it 3 times, and if they can't respond, and there are hundreds of students across the state of Nebraska, quite honestly, but the state says you must try. So you do, and then you obviously you just document that, yes, we gave 3 attempts and so on, but we can only have 1% of our student body. If we go over 1% every year, we have over 1% of our students that the IEP team has determined they need an alternative assessment. You have to go through a significant series of rubric questions to determine whether they're alternative assessment. If you go over the 1%, you have to justify it, you have to send in a report. Jen does it every year. Okay? We don't get sanctioned for that. It just gets documented that Plainview violated the 1% rule. Most districts do, but they still leave it at 1%. But still, 59% of ELA proficiency is not good enough. And so, I'm sorry, 56 is not good enough. The state is 59. And so that has our attention, and that is our school improvement goal. And it dominates our conversation in professional development and the work that Jen and Kyle do in the buildings. We'll keep you posted on the specific things that we're gonna do, continue to try to increase that ELA. And you did notice in my professional goals, it's one of my professional goals. Okay, so there's your district snapshot. You will get an annual report. Normally you get that in December, that one sheet with all the numbers on it. Normally you get that in December. And I decided last year to wait until I get, I'm waiting for one significant piece of data from the Department of Data, and hopefully I have it for next month, okay, and that's cost per pupil. That seems to be an important one to people, and I don't like to be a whole year in arrears on that. So it's okay to wait for our end of 2024 annual report to January 25, maybe even February of 25. It's fine, it just has to be done annually. And so if you were wondering or anticipating that this month, because it's been December for several years in a row, that will be coming up. In your folders, you had a few different pieces of information. One of them was KSB legal representative agreement. So that's just some, so when I consult with our legal counsel, which represents you, which represents the board, doesn't represent me, when I consult with them, it's generally KSB. So I just wanted you to see the information that they push out on an annual basis on what their relationship is with the board whenever we consult with them. So I wanted you to just have that. Superintendent Board Operating Protocol, I think, and that comes from NCSA. So those are the folks that represent the administrators across Nebraska. That's from Dr. Danders. So I think that's valuable. That's just helpful. Okay, so I want to provide that to you. Also gave it to Justin and Caden. They have that as well as the KSB Legal Representative Agreement. So they have that. Just going to bring them up to speed on that and how that operates. Put an article in there about CTE, Career Tech Ed. You're all fully aware of the growth of Career Tech Ed and career pathways in school districts and school building. Any school that's built new facilities, significant new facilities in probably the past decade has done so with Career Tech Ed in mind, or STS, sometimes called STS, Skilled and Technical Sciences. Same thing. These are technical skills that schools are recognizing a little more. Hey, these count just as much, and maybe depending upon your demographics or depending upon your geography, maybe more important to your community than the math and the science and so on. So I know you're fully aware, but I caught that as I look through, World Herald, Norfolk Daily News, and maybe even Twitter. If I find something that I think I might push it out to you. So that was just a simple little article I wanted you to have. Also, our $17,500 audit arrived day before yesterday. So you have a copy of that. That'll be on next month's agenda. So between now and then, feel free to look through that. Maybe the most valuable part will be the reports, which is on the pages, the pages that are not bound, even though that same information it can be found within this document. I've read through it. There's nothing new that we haven't really read about in other years, but I'll go through quite a bit more carefully between now and January. I would appreciate if you, between now and January, as you're looking through it, if you find something you have a question about, it helps Kelly and I tremendously if you present that to us prior to the meeting, so that we can make sure we have an explanation or an answer for you. Okay, so that's all I have. Vacation and sick balance is there for your information.
All right, then we'll go back up to the superintendent evaluation, which we'll decide to go into closed session. So we would need a motion to go into closed session. I have them.
I'll make a motion to go in closed session, discuss the evaluation of an employee and to protect the needless injury to the reputation of an individual.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we move to second to go into closed session to discuss the evaluation of an employee and protect the needless injury to the reputation of an individual. Myself, yes. Ben? Melissa?
Yes.
Chance?
Yes.
Yes. Should we go in the other room?
Do you guys want my books? Or do you want them before they?
I'll take it. Yep.